there's a way to make an entrance.
This is my destiny.
It was now a conspiracy of witches.
Download Veely today.
I promise, this is not going to be a show about fishing. I mean, you will see fishing and catching, and maybe even a few shots of cleaning fish that were caught, but it won't be gross. You'll meet veteran fishing guides like Mitch.
We got the rolling tundra, and it's also a great wildlife viewing place.
And newbies like Ivy.
It still kind of feels like the Wild West out here.
Along with the owner of this remote resort.
You're sitting on the porch between all the ptarmigan and brown bear, and once in a while you see wolves, and that's right here in the compound. That's what's, you know you're not home anymore.
And a ride along with 3 generations of one family that have come here to fish.
I just love being with the boys, the grandkids, the friends. It's phenomenal.
But this isn't about fishing. It's about Alaska. Specifically, a part of Alaska few tourists ever see. A place where the tundra stretches to the horizon and coastal brown bears patrol the banks of a river that winds through the Alaskan Peninsula.
She's pretty.
True, the salmon are what brought us here. But like most adventures to Alaska, we found a whole lot more than tight lines and a slowly setting sun.
Well, I really like guiding in an area that is so remote, and every day is a different adventure.
Shoulder.
Oh! Okay, so maybe this one is a little bit about fishing.
Told you. Apparently we didn't have a thick enough piece of wood.
When you travel, the world becomes a smaller place. When you explore with friends that share a love of photography, destinations come to life.
This water is emerald green.
We tell the stories of travel with our cameras, capturing some of the most beautiful locations on Earth. But every adventure reveals more than what's in the frame.
Thunder boomers. We see them popping up right now.
The people, the food, and unexpected turns in the journey.
Now they're going to swim right with us.
Brings the full experience of travel into focus. Alaska has many faces. And most of those faces are unfamiliar to those who've yet to explore America's 49th state. With over 650,000 square miles of area, the prevailing and singular notion that Alaska is covered entirely by snow and ice is a long way from the truth. The fact is, Alaska holds many wonders. Its land and seascapes are incredibly diverse, which makes it one of our favorite places to film. John Neely, David Boomer, and myself have been coming here for the last 10 years to capture the different faces of Alaska. Most of the places we visited are in fact covered with snow and ice. The popular destinations found in one of Alaska's 8 national parks. Places like Denali, Wrangell St. Elias, and Glacier Bay. The temperate rainforests of southern Alaska's Inside Passage are a lush backdrop to travelers who explore places like Ketchikan and Skagway. In Wrangell St. Elias National Park, massive ice flows like the Kennecott Glacier carve through rugged peaks, creating otherworldly treasures like this ice cave that best even the most vivid imaginations. But there's a part of Alaska that just statistically few tourists ever see. And it's completely different from the more popular destinations Alaska is well known for. The Alaskan Peninsula is that long arm of land that juts west of the mainland, dividing the Bering Sea to the north from the Pacific Ocean to the south. Here, endless stretches of rolling hills, lakes, streams, and rivers quietly exist And when the long days of summer sun returned to Alaska, 2 migrations here began. The first, the world's largest run of salmon returned to the rivers they were born in. And the second, people who travel a long way to this remote part of Alaska to try and catch them. I came to this distant fishing camp in 2017 for the first time to catch silver salmon with friends that are actually more like family to me. The Egegik River flows from Bashar Lake, Alaska's second largest, northward and eventually empties into Bristol Bay. Catching fish came easy as the summer run of silvers made its way towards Bashar Rapids Camp where we stayed. But I was really moved by the landscape here. The rolling tundra, the distant volcanic peaks on the southern range, and just the extreme, remote wild that exists here. There are no roads, no cities or towns, just raw Alaska. So when my best friend Brian and his brother Mark decided to head back to the river 2 years later, I was in. But this time, I was bringing more than a few fishing poles and waders. I wanted to document the adventure and share it with people who think Alaska is just about igloos and crab fishing shows. So while a fishing trip is why we came here, the real catch is so much more. Getting to this part of Alaska is not easy. A flight from California up to Seattle, then to Anchorage with an overnight stay, then another flight to King Salmon, Alaska gets you here, to the Branch River Air Service, where floatplanes ferry fishermen and hikers to points beyond. Our entire group is made up of 10 people, 3 generations of Big Leones and some straggler friends like me. We load up into 3 de Havilland Beaver bush planes and slowly lift off the river into the Alaskan sky. Flying in these old, sturdy planes is literally one of my favorite parts of the trip. From about 500 feet up, the expanse of tundra spotted with lakes and ponds is the first indication that this part of Alaska is very different from the rest we've seen. The scenery below is so unusual, the 40-minute flight seems to be over in a snap as our pilot pulls back on the throttle, easing our giant floating plane out of the sky. This is the loading zone for the Bashar Rapids Camp. As we arrive, the group that finished here the previous 5 days is ready to load up their gear and 50-pound boxes of fresh salmon fillets for the return trip to King Salmon. As one adventure ends, another one begins. But for the owners of this operation, it's an 8-week grind after their commercial fishing run is done to give people like us a one-of-a-kind outdoor experience.
Well, I've been in Alaska here, in southwest Alaska, in the Bashar Wildlife Refuge, in the area around here for about 32 years. Started in commercial fishing. The hunting is fabulous, and the fishing is just, it's outstanding. And then you just get away from the crowd. I live about 2 hours just southwest of Seattle, right on the coast. My life is totally here for the salmon. This is one of the largest runs of wild salmon left in the world. And it's the spawning habitat, it's just a nursery that supports one of the biggest salmon runs in the world. And that's what brings me here every year, from commercially to the sport end of it. And then we go into, such as a big run, it's the bear viewing, it's the trout fishing that goes along with the whole ecosystem. So I've been coming here and I enjoy it every year in the summertime.
After loading up onto the boats, it's a short run downriver to the camp itself. Dave and his wife Nancy have run this camp since 2008. They open it after their commercial salmon fishing is completed downriver. The camp is made up of one main building where meals are made and eaten and where campers can relax after a long day on the river. The bunkhouses are pretty basic, and there's a few bathrooms and 2 hot showers. All run by generators, and all surrounded by a hot wire fence to give us the illusion that it will keep out a 1,000-pound brown bear. But we know better than that. Along with Dave and Nancy, a small team of guides works to put us on the fish and keep us safe. This crew is highly skilled at both.
The thing that's really cool is it's remote. A lot of people like to go to Alaska and, they want that real Alaskan experience. And then they end up finding out that they're spending it with 1,000 other people. You can do that, other places. Up here, you're all by yourself. The only way to get here is a labyrinth of a boat ride or a floatplane flight. It is a lot different here. I mean, we got the rolling tundra. It's kind of weird, there's no trees. All we have is alder bushes. But it's great for hikes. We got blueberries all over the place, cranberries. We also have tundra raspberries. So it's a great place to go fishing. It's a great place to go hiking and even berry picking.
I might have some video.
I am so glad I got this rolling on camera right now.
New to Dave's guide team this year is Ivy O'Quinn. She was born and raised in Alaska on the Kenai Peninsula and has been coming to this river to fish since she was a little girl.
My mom's side's from Igigik Village, which is at the mouth of the river. So I grew up here, spending every summer out here, and then I'd winter in the Kenai, back in Soldotna.
And then how did you get hooked up with this crew?
My family's known Dave for a long time, commercial fishing out in Igigik Village, and he called me up this spring and asked if I wanted to come guide out here. And that's how I came out here. The people are awesome, the silvers are great, Mitch is pretty cool. The weather's been incredible. I've fun fished up here my whole life, so it's fun to stay late into the season and spend more time doing it and get paid to do it.
After a day and a half of flying from the lower 48, we begin to settle into our familiar riverside camp. Outside, Mitch and Greg prepare salmon roe from an earlier catch to use as bait tomorrow. Most of our group will be fishing with standard tackle, throwing large spinners into the river, while others will be fly fishing for salmon. But if both of those methods are less than hot, a surefire way to hook a silver is to drift a giant glob of this stuff below a bobber and hang on. With the sun taking its sweet time to set, we spot our first coastal brown bear across the river. A huge male that's come in to feed on salmon. These coastal brown bears, also known as Alaskan Peninsula browns, are a subspecies of the grizzlies that live on the mainland. The camp is literally surrounded by these bears that keep their distance during the day, but at night we could see them just beyond our fence.
The bears ever come right up here to the camp?
Oh yeah, we have them walk our electric fence line. Have them walk right in front of camp.
You ever had any problems with them though? They ever get rowdy?
No, not too bad here. I mean, they're pretty docile. You gotta respect them, They move fast. Like, you can see them and they move, looks like really slow. But they get through this tundra super quick. So yeah, we keep an eye on them. Usually you just have to get out of the way. You either step back, get up on the ridge, let them walk by you, because they're just looking for fish. Or you jump in the boat. As soon as they hear that boat motor, they're out of there.
Early morning over the Alaska Peninsula brings another sunny, unusually warm day, hot coffee, Nancy's incredible breakfast, and our first full day of chasing silver salmon. The silvers have yet to move into the river near camp in large numbers, so Dave and the guides take us upriver to where the Igigik is born, at the tailwaters of Bashar Lake. The boats we're on have special outboard engines that replace the traditional prop with a water jet system. This allows us to skim over the top of large rocks and shallow gravel bars on our way up to the lake. In fact, we only need 5 inches of water below us to operate these boats swiftly upriver. After a short hike to the place where the Igigik River begins, the expanse of Bashar Lake can be seen. And it is big.
I love coming here. It's open. The fishing is great. The best thing about a fishing trip is being able to fish with your 2 sons, your 2 grandsons. I mean, it's priceless. I mean, just look at this country here. It's just beautiful. The fishing's great. The guides are great here. It's just a phenomenal place to come fishing. It's just something else. You just got to do it.
When the weather is clear like today and the mosquitoes are kept at bay with a nice 10-mile-an-hour wind blowing, this part of Alaska can easily get into your soul. Here, you are about as far off the grid as anywhere you can be on Earth. No cell phones, no Wi-Fi, just moments spent with friends and family, enjoying the simple pleasures of catching fish in a place that is about as beautiful as it gets.
It still kind of feels like the Wild West out here, you know? It's, you gotta think different, you're off the grid. I get to share my love for this area and this region with everyone that comes in that's never seen it and been here, and share my stories and show them, you know, what I love about the place.
You ever seen anything like this before?
It's unreal.
Field rep.
Back at camp, and after a long day of fishing, it's time to relax around the fire, even though it's about 65 degrees outside and the sun is 5 hours from setting. Gene's grandsons, Conley and Tanner, hike above camp to take a break from the fish and the fire and put the steady wind to work. The quiet, lonely landscapes of the Alaska Peninsula seem almost unattached to the rest of the world. One of the few places left on Earth that is largely untouched by human hands.
There are no towns, there are no roads. Your only way in here is by floatplane or boat. And it's usually these fishing resorts are like the only way you can get in here and see this kind of place on your own. Just the wildlife here alone is something special. I mean, I'm literally sitting here shooting this with you guys right now, and I'm looking right across the river at a huge bear that's just walking along the bank doing his thing, feeding. The grizzly bears here, the coastal brown bears here, they can eat 70 to 80 pounds of salmon a day when the salmon are in here. So what's nice about that is they're not really interested in you so much. They're more interested in getting to that salmon. And we've had situations where we've been fishing right next to bears, where they'll literally just come out of the tundra, come out of the brush, and they'll look at you and they'll feed and then they'll leave. They typically don't like to be around people, so even if they hear us or our boat, they'll go the other direction. But every once in a while you can get really close, and at this time of the day, we're late in the day. Right now the light is the sun's still really high in the sky. It's 8:30 at night right now. The sun won't really go down here. This time of the year, we're in early August. The sun won't go down here until, 11 o'clock, midnight, before it gets sort of dark. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's quiet. And if you're looking for a nature experience, it's really off the grid, really beyond the lens. This part of Alaska is it.
It's so raw, there's just, there's no population, there'll never be development. It's a part of Alaska that's it's real Alaska, with the refuge and having the second largest lake in the state, totally uninhabited. One of the largest runs of salmon in the, in the whole state or the world actually comes up this little river, with just no activity commercially, sport-wise at all. So that's it's nice when you get away to a spot that is just rural and not crowded. I really enjoy that part of this river, Igigik River.
For me, Alaska is a place that has begun to feel like home over the years. True, I've never spent a full winter here, and the winter months can be difficult. But during late spring and summer, it can be a transformative experience and a destination any outdoor photographer will fall in love with. A fishing trip to the Alaska Peninsula will always be successful in my opinion, no matter how many fish are caught. For my friends, it's been special for 3 generations, brothers and cousins, to not only spend time together, but to truly get what this place is really all about.
You know, we come here to fish, but surprisingly when we get here, it's more about the bears and the wildlife and the little foxes that are running around. Instead of the fishing, we're more consumed with the other wildlife that we see when we get here. You know, coming up here with my family, my son, my brother, my dad, as 3 generations, that kind of tops it off as we all got to experience it at the same time. So that's what I liked. You know, as a family, we could have probably chose anywhere in the world to travel to, but coming to a remote place like that kind of brings us together, and that's what's special.
Our final day in Alaska is bittersweet. We've been here for a week, all caught our limit of salmon, and now begin to allow the realization that soon cell phones will have coverage and emails and text messages will once again rule the day. But travel to places like Alaska that are outside what you think your comfort zone is always seem to stay with you a little longer after you return. Alaska is just too big to be considered one destination. Cruising the southern part of the state is the most popular way to see the spectacular coastline and quaint seaside towns. Flying into Anchorage and exploring places like Denali or Wrangell St. Elias National Parks will definitely leave you amazed. But even these locations bear the trappings of civilization and human development. Here on the Alaska Peninsula, it truly is one of the world's last great natural frontiers.
When you first think of Alaska, you think snow, ice, cold, and yesterday it was absolutely gorgeous. The sun was out. It almost got too warm. You could see forever. You can almost compare it to grasslands. It seems so bright and green compared to what you think and what your expectations are. It was really, really fun.
You know, this is, like I said, it's a dream come true. My dad, he's worked his butt off his whole life, and all he wanted to do was come up here and do an Alaska trip. Well, he died at 48, died kind of early. And about 2 years later, I ended up getting this job. So every year and every day I wake up, I mean, it's like my dream come true. I'm the guide that he would have been up here fishing with, and I get to do this for all these people that come to visit me. There's a lot of father-son groups that come up here, and that really touches my heart because they're doing what I wanted to do with my dad, you know?
Travel can be a lifelong practice with lessons we should never stop learning. Places like the Alaska Peninsula are some of the world's best classrooms.